Hi beautiful souls, welcome back to the channel, Soul Awakening with Shantia. Welcome to the first video of the Graha series. So looks like I'm going to be having to break this down because I wanted to get you guys all of the juicy information available. So the Sun part series is going to be divided up into 4 parts. It's just I realized as I was doing research that in order for me to talk about the sun in the signs, right? Sun in the signs, sun in the houses, and sun's conjunctions, and give examples, those are going to have to be separate videos. And I like to throw everything in one video because I I like consuming the fullness and the completeness of an idea or a concept in one video if I can, versus having to split it up. But this is the modern day and age of content creation, and practically it just makes sense so that when people want to look for that specific information, they'll be able to find it. So welcome to part 1. In this video, we're going to talk about just sun in general. We are going to be talking about it from an observational standpoint. We're going to be talking about the symbology associated with it, as well as the mythology. And I'm not a big history buff or mythology buff. I can get into the mythology of things sometimes if it's cool, creative, and interesting. I like to channel, I like to sift through and just sort of flow with the energy of what I'm feeling inspired to talk about. But the mythology part was interesting because it took me back to history class. It took me back to when I was studying the Babylonian and the Egyptian periods. And it just took me back to high school when I studied art history a little bit in college, but it took me back to high school, and it made me realize the practicality of why I would have enjoyed learning the mythology in high school had I associated with the planets. It would have been a lot more interesting. So yeah, today we're going to delve into the energy of sun. So this is what we're channeling. I wore my bestie yellow shirt here because I'm ready to go and talk about sun with all the enthusiasm and passion that I can muster up for this energy. And as I'm talking about it, I haven't yet made the title page. It was so funny. I got on here and I was like, all right, it's time to shoot. And then I realized I didn't make a title page or a thumbnail for it. But by the time I upload this, you'll see it. So I'm still working on that. And we got to see what works because I was trying things out and I'm like, I can't whip this up quick. It has to come together. Welcome to the Graha series. So the Grahas in Vedic Astrology, there are 9 Grahas that are called 9 Navagrahas. The outer planets, Pluto, Uranus, and Neptune, are not considered Navagrahas. But, of course, I will be talking about them. Those planets play a vital part in the collective consciousness. So it's very much generational energies. So people from certain periods, like millennials or whatever, will have very similar outer planet shifts where they're embracing certain consciousness. And I feel like that helps with the evolution of humanity or the devolution, whatever the universe wants to play with. That's what those planets are. But today we're going to be talking about sun, and I'm so excited to be talking about sun because it's the biggest it's the biggest planet. So it does actually hold significance, importance. I know in Vedic astrology, they put an emphasis on ascendant and moon, which also play a part into our life experiences. But in this video today, we're probably going to learn more as to why sun has such a dominant force in our life. So let's start off with the word Graha. What is a Graha? So Graha in Sanskrit means to seize, grasp, or hold. So these plants are essentially seizing, grasping, and holding us into or influencing us to embrace certain states of consciousness, right? Someone who has the sun in Aries would have a very strong willpower, or determined consciousness, versus someone in Libra who has a more diplomatic, harmonious conscious state. So it influences your consciousness. So Graha, that which seizes or influences your being. I think I'm channeling my notes here. I didn't look at this before I started this video. It's so funny. So that which seizes or influences your being. The 9 main planets make up the Navagrahas. Rahu and Ketu are specifically shadow Grahas or Jaya Grahas. I hope I spelled that correct. I might have added an extra H that I'm gonna have to take out later. I feel like Rahu and Ketu, whenever we're going through those transits, they play significant roles in activating certain things. It's like switches get turned on and off when Rahu and Ketu are shifting into different signs. And there are specific collective lessons that then and there in that moment in time that we're learning for ourselves. Graha is a living conscious force that represents your inner and your outer life. They shape your karma, emotions, thoughts, and destiny. Grahas create divine activations, and they typically can be seen with the naked eye. So even without a telescope, if you have pretty good 20/20 vision, you should be able to see the main 9 Grahas depending on the time of the year. Right? But we can't really see the outer planets. Like, no. Well, I don't even know, okay? Like, let me be honest, guys. I have no problem admitting I tried looking into telescopes before, and I feel like I get lost. I think I need a really good one, perhaps, but I don't know the stars like that. I feel like my sense of direction is just confusing. What I do know how to navigate well is my inner compass, and that's what I trust to guide me through everything. All right, so here is my intro paragraph concept to what sun is. The sun is the potent force of sun generates our sense of self and identity in this world. Largest in size, influence, and hottest in temperature, sun is the main deciding factor to one's persona and how one relates to this world. Sun can light up your pathway, add warmth to our lives, and burn away the lies. It can also cast shadows or a false light and stir up the ego's aggression and restlessness. As a central figure, it ultimately determines one's personality and expression, or the limitation of it. It can reveal to us our own personal path of light and help us to navigate the journey of the soul as we bravely take on the rough terrain that life has to offer. Without the sun, we would have no sense of self. With it, we will often be challenged to not lose ourselves in its influence, which calls for intentional living so its energies can be alchemized and used for the greater good. So when I talk about sun in the signs, the rashis, in the houses, the bhavas, and when I talk about the conjunctions, I'm going to mention the devolved and evolved understanding of those energies. So every planet has the ability to offer us blessings or to help us to navigate it, but it's up to us. You know, we ultimately have to choose how we navigate our own inner terrain. Otherwise, you know, without us consciously understanding ourselves, it's going to take a hold of our life and it's going to control us. So it is important to have some deeper understanding or spiritual perspective and understand that your choice is the thing that influences the impact of how sun is going to influence you in your life. From observation, the way I would describe sun is that it's bright, right? So the first thing you go out, it's so bright and blinding. I remember, so we lived in Hawaii for like the first 12 years of my life, then we moved to the States, and the sun was very different. And I guess that's because of the elevation, atmosphere, a combination of things, I'm sure, combined to make it that. But in the States, it just felt so much more intense, bright, and blinding. And maybe it was because I lived in a sunny state growing up. Having the sun go in and out and then be re-exposed to it where it's like blinding my eyes, it just felt really intense. Very intense. So the sun is bright, like a flashlight, blinding you. It's hot, fiery, dry. It can be dry depending on the terrain, right? Because if it heats something up, it'll dry it up. If you go out during the summer and your hair is wet, next thing you know, your hair's dry. If you sit out there in the sun long enough, it will dry your head, it will dry your scalp, especially if you have dry skin like me. Yes, you'll feel that. Sun is the largest planet. It's round, a yellow. So the colors that we often see with sun is yellow, orange, perhaps white. You can even maybe connect white to it, and red. So sort of at the top of the headline here, I have sort of those hues that we often see with our naked eye, that our eyes can detect, that determines what the sun looks like. The sun can range from being warm to burning or blistering. So yeah, it can add warmth to our personality or to our lives, or it can be really hot and heated. So if someone has like multiple planets sitting in a fire sign, you know, it makes their planet very blistering or intense. If they have those conjunctions, it can make certain things really intense. And my goodness, I looked up, so I collected a database of about 31 well-known people in society with sun influences, and I was trying to look for conjunctions, but I was blown away with how common it was to see sun conjunct another one of their planets or several planets in their chart. So sun will definitely bring the light to you, the spotlight to you, and make you feel seen, or it will create a drive within you to want to be seen. So sun can give this energy of like paradise, where it feels like a vacation. It feels so good just to go outside, soak up the warmth. The weather's been really nice lately, and like that perfect temperature. So I've just been spending time outside, you know, working on these presentations and just relaxing in the weather. It's just, I love it. Or it could feel like a desert. So if you were to go somewhere like Texas or Arizona, Mexico during the summer, oh my goodness. You'd be like, it's too hot. It's too hot. We need water on us 24/7. We need some AC. Like, it's a different experience. It's very intense. Perhaps like in Texas, you get that dry heat. So it's not as pleasant of an experience if you were to, you know, enjoy 70 degrees sunlight with some like shadows of the clouds coming in and out. That feels a lot easier on the skin. So sun also creates cycles. So when you wake up, you know, sun's coming up 5 o'clock in the morning, perhaps. It's coming up, it's rising, it's moving in the sky, or from our perspective, it looks like it's moving in the sky. And then it rises. Okay, I'm sorry about this. Is it rise on the east, sets on the west? If that's not right, then we're going to flip it. I'm sorry about that. But yes, we see it rise and then it goes down, and then it does the same thing every day. So it's cyclical and it's repetitive. So we always know that the sun is going to be there. It's the one thing that's really nice about living in this world, is that we always know that the sun is going to come up. So it provides us with daylight, and it gives us that daily reset. So the sun also helps the plants to grow. Without the sun, we wouldn't have any abundance. Things wouldn't get nourishment. We wouldn't get nourishment. So there's photosynthesis that's being created thanks to the sunlight. The sun is giving us energy. You know, it's giving our food energy. And it's when we eat that food, that energy transmits into us. It's really beautiful for that system, for the photosynthesis system with plants. Sun is an energizer, a generator. So if you have solar panels on the top of your roof, or solar panel anything, or solar anything, it powers it up so good. It's amazing what you can get with the solar technology these days. The sun powers things up, and you definitely feel that. You know, if you're sitting out in the sun, let's say it's hot, for like the first 5 minutes it feels good, and then after that starts to get hotter and hotter, you can feel the intensity of that. Sun to me is like a generator. So it's like an engine that just goes endlessly. Sun has like a central figure. So if you go according to, the heliocentric model, the sun is at the center of the universe, the center of our solar system. So all the planets revolve around sun according to that system. The sun also is noted as being like a solar disk. So if you were like a child, usually when you're drawing sun in your images, you're drawing a circle and then you're coloring it orange. So it's basically a solar disk. This is what's depicted and recorded also in history when people didn't know what the sun was. If they thought it was a round ball, at first maybe some people thought it was just a disk in the sky. So here's the symbology associated with sun. So sun, another word for sun is soul, and that has a play on the word soul. Soul is the same thing. So your soul, according to some people, the sun is supposed to be a representation of your soul. So until you can complete your soul and retrieve all the parts of your soul, it's going to be hard for you to elevate and evolve past this human existence into your next higher incarnation at a higher level. So you need to complete the sun, the soul first. The sun is also a play on the word son. So having a father, having a son. think is really cool. Often when we hear about Christ, we hear about the Father and the Son. So I think that shows us that the sun takes care of us, right? It gives us energy. So that shows us that the sun is taking care of its children or its divine children. The universe is taking care of its divine children. But the sun is also a representation of your father, and that's often what it is supposed to be depicted as in your chart. So the sun speaks to your relationship with your father, your karmic patterns with your father as well. It reveals that. So the sun has this authoritative energy, in charge energy with it. But with the sun, often what we will see depicted in tarot card, the sun, you see a child. So I think the sun has a range of expression. So for example, in Leo, the sun would be maybe playful, but depending, right? Leo's also leadership. So at a young age, maybe that Sun Leo energy would be more playful, but as it gets older, it starts to see the impact it has, or that person starts to see the impact they have on society. So they feel the responsibility of how they interact and engage with people in this world. So Sun has a spectrum of expressions. Sun is also connected to the self or the ego. So the sun in a chart is supposed to be a representation of your identity, your persona, who you are, how you see yourself, right? So it gives you a sense of self. And ego, a lot of people have their own unique way of describing what the ego is. It's good, it's bad. And I think most of us are coming to understand that the ego is just a part of our human makeup, right? It helps us to have an identity. It actually helps us to ground in our body and have a sense of self. And even though it plays into this illusion of separation, that's the whole part of the dharmic pathway, is to learn that you're this body connected to the whole. So yeah, the ego creates that identity and separation, but you get to embrace that, and then you get to evolve through that relationship with your ego. So it's no longer holding you or seizing you into this just identity of who you thought you were. The sun influences your personality. Now, because it is the biggest, largest planet out of all the Grahas, yes, it's definitely going to have a huge impact on your personality. One of the arguments with Vedic astrology and Western astrology is that Western astrology focuses too much on sun, solar energy, selfishness, and personality, whereas Vedic astrology tries to focus on self-reflection with the moon and the ascendant, where, depending on the transits, you're kind of seeing what's being activated in that person's chart. So that's why you can see that a sun in Aries in the first house and a sun in Aries in the 12th house have very distinct personalities, ways of operating in their lives. It really shifts the dynamic of how the personality comes out and is expressed here. But yeah, definitely sun has a huge influence on how we express ourselves. Your moon might be your inner self, but depending on where it's at, that might not be something that you mirror to other people. I think people who have moon in the 1st, 4th, 10th, or 7th house, people tend to know more of what they're thinking or about their sensitivity. Maybe more of those people are known for their sensitivity, and people feel more connected to them, as opposed to, oh, hey, here's me, I'm entertaining you, or I'm leading you, or I'm, the sun is focused more on the self-expression, whereas the moon is more of a self-reflection. There's a play on words there. Sun is also symbolic for your life force energy. So it literally influences how much life force energy you feel like you have to express. I feel like we all come into this world with 100% in some sense, but the way that is expressed, it may be limited. So like if you have a 12th house sun, for example, your energy is going to be a lot more limited because you're going to be pulled more towards isolation for a reason. You tend to feel more rested and vibrant when you have time to yourself. You have that time to isolate. So it impacts the life force energy and how it's expressed into this world. A sun and a fire sign, boom, like their life force energy is knocking at the door. And it doesn't even matter what house it's in, but usually that life force energy is knocking at the door. That person usually comes into this world wanting to be here, wanting to experience life, passionate about it, excited to see what happens. So therefore, it can give you this optimistic energy, personality, and brightness. So think about it. The sun comes up and it goes down. right? This idea that we always know and we can rely on the sun coming up, rising and setting gives us this optimistic view on life, because it helps us understand that life goes on no matter what. There's no end finish. It's just what's next. And that gives us more of a optimistic mindset where we look forward to what's going to happen every day instead of feeling miserable. So sun is very powerful for getting us out of those blockages, those limiting beliefs. I'm kind of hinting here what's going to be coming up in the next series, but it can help you to get out of those low states. Wherever your sun is sitting or what sign it's sitting, it can actually help to lift you up out of those lower states. Sun can also empower you or it's your journey to empowerment, right? So everything that we experience from the time we're born is something we're developing. Sometimes we come in with past life confidence, but we're still developing from the ground up to some extent, and we're learning how to feel more empowered. And that's a huge part of what Gary Zukov teaches. That's a huge part of the human journey, is how to step into power, how to tap into your authentic power, how to stop giving away your life force energy and your power to other things and external things, but learning how to redirect it back to yourself. So, when I talk about the sun and conjunctions in the signs and in the houses, we're going to reflect on this and talk about how you can learn how to redirect that life force energy better. Because the reason why I'm teaching this, I'm studying this, is because I wanted to share this, because I feel like a lot of the information I found on the internet is very externalized. It's all about what can I get in society, and we're evolving. We have a chance to evolve, to redirect our life force energy inwards. So this is why I'm like, I need to study up on this and then learn, and help to offer that to people so that they understand, how do I really not owning anything, but how do I embrace this sun energy to the best of my abilities? Because we are evolving out of externalizing and outsourcing our energy. You are the sun. Okay, everyone has this beautiful reset of life force energy every time they wake up, and it's up to you to decide how to use it. And you can use it to elevate and to feel truly empowered instead of giving your power away to systems. So therefore, that takes us to the next one. Sun is truth, right? So it reveals things. When things light up, it's bright. It takes things out of the shadow. What's unseen, hidden, and what's in the shadow is now revealed. So it has this revealing nature to it. And it can reveal to you anything, answers to your soul, answers to who you are, answers to who you were in your past life. Wherever sun is sitting, it illuminates that house and it illuminates that energy, and it magnifies it. It's an amplifier. Sun is also connected to Dharma. So that's the number one thing for sure on this journey to being a human. We are on a path to learn Dharma, right action. We're here to figure out how to use our life force energy, how to be a human, and how to be a fulfilled human. That is your Dharma there. And that's what sun is going to reveal to you wherever it's sitting. It can help you to figure out how to get there. Sun is also this central figure. So the father can be an example of a central figure in the family, as in, helping to guide and lead, which takes us to the last one on the list here, symbology. But yeah, sun, wherever it's sitting or wherever it's at, that's where we're being encouraged to experiment with power, tuning into our confidence and expressing yourself, right? So if you have like a sun in Cancer, you might want to learn how to express yourself when it comes to emotional intelligence. So you're learning how to feel empowered in that. So wherever sun is sitting, that is here what you're here to learn for sure. What you're here to learn about yourself. Like, who are you? Like, what do you want to do? This is the fun part of being human, is definitely wherever sun is sitting in your chart. That's the fun part of being human. It's like, this is the place where it illuminates it. So it doesn't matter if it's sitting in the 8th house in Scorpio and it's like moody. It's still going to be an illuminating, inspiring experience for you. Okay. And then sun is also calling you to lead. We're all leaders. Every single one of us is leaders. Don't look to anyone else. If you are looking to anyone else. They're there to serve as inspiration for you to embrace your own inner leader. So first, learn how to lead yourself, and then through that, you will be inspired to lead others as well. So we are all called to be leaders. Wherever sun is sitting in your chart, it will show you how to do that. Okay, so let's tap into the mythologies. So I thought this was interesting. I wanted to get a bit of a history background on what sun is represented in culture. And I was like, it was so strange because I found a common theme in every single one of these cultures, which straight up I will tell you that the sun god was used to empower people so that they could manipulate the culture. They can manipulate people into becoming their followers. So I feel like the consciousness at the time, during these times when these deities were being created, people wanted to, they were superstitious, they were paranoid, and they wanted to find a way, I think subconsciously, to control people. I would even say that they outright were trying to manipulate and be evil. I think they were just trying to survive. And so they did what they felt like they needed to do. And they probably went into a garden, meditated about it, thought about it, got some counsel. And I bet their mentors, teachers, whatever, their father, family told them, yeah, that's a good idea. You should use this mythology of sun, bring it to your side so that you are the ruler. And during the time, a lot of these deities came alive during similar periods of time. You know, we got the 5th century here. It ranged somewhere like 3000 BCE to like 400 CE. Like it ranged within that period of time. Sun worship was really popular. And it took me back to that conflict where people say, oh, you shouldn't worship gods and whatnot. Now, I don't have that. I don't have, what do you call it? A mantle. What's the word I'm looking for? Like, I don't do that worship. I don't even pray. Like, I just talk. You know, I just talk to source like it's my friend, basically. That is my devotion style. You know, I'm not superstitious where, you know, I use crystals because I thought they were fun. They were playful. I'm not superstitious about things and objects. And what I tell people when I give them readings, or I have given them readings just for fun, like friends and close ones, I tell them you are the most powerful, potent force. You don't need a crystal. You don't need to worship this thing. You don't need a certain mantra that's going to decide your fate. You, every day as a human, are here to make choices that are in alignment with your heart, what you feel is right. And that is the work. So upon doing research about these deities, it was clear that back then they were used to manipulate people. And I think absolutely the priestess, the shamans probably got these beautiful inspirations from divinity about these energies. And they wanted to harness them. You know, they were superstitious. They wanted to figure out, how do we harness this power so that we rule? And they had to learn that. That was just an experience, karmically, albeit, that they had to learn. So the first one I have listed here is Surya. So this is from the Hindu culture or Vedic culture. So this is a solar deity, giver of light and life. And Surya had a chariot drawn by 7 horses that represented the 7 colors of light. Surya is also the chief among Aditya, the solar deities. Surya is also referenced to as Aditya. So there's Aditi and there's Aditya. So not to get them mixed up, Aditi is a female sky heavenly goddess. Surya is the sun god deity. So what was very common in these sun gods is a lot of them had chariots with the white horses. So that's a big reference. And, you know, we'll speak on the tarot card. That's basically describing the tarot card right there. Why that is. So the next one we have here is we had Ra, the Egyptian sun god. So that's very popular. A lot of people know about Ra. So the sun god is depicted with a falcon head and a solar disc. Falcon head and a solar disc. Ra represents creation, kingship, and the daily rebirth of the sun. So that was common when they were talking about the mythologies of these sun gods. All of them had horses or a chariot that they were riding across the sky. So to people back in the day, the mythology that showed up in their consciousness was that the sun was being driven like a man on a chariot was driving his horses, and that was supposed to be a representation as they drove the chariot across the sky of the sun rising and setting. So next one we had was Helios. So Helios is part of Greek and Roman culture. Helios is the charioteer who drives the sun across the sky. The charioteer who drives the sun across the sky. So I just said that. We have here Sol Invictus. So this is Roman. So this was supposed to represent unconquered sun. And this actually served the Roman Empire. I think the later Roman Empire, and it helped to give them imperial power over the people, which is very similar to the Japanese sun goddess, who we'll talk about in a minute here. We had Apollo, so this is a Greek or Roman. So Apollo is supposed to be a representation of light, prophecy, music, poetry. Apollo had more of a youthful energy. This felt more like the playful side of Leo coming out in the sun card in tarot, like the child. So it felt more playful and creative. And I like that. It was a bit different from the others. We also got prophecy there. So that's the revealing of the truth that sun offers to us. We have Sol, the Norse goddess. So the goddess who drives the sun chariot chased by the wolf skull. There you go. When I show you the dates, it's pretty cool. I imagine that in these cultures, travel wasn't, they didn't have planes like that where everyone was traveling to see each other and greet each other. So divinity and human consciousness had evolved to the point where they had understood the mythology of the sun in this way. So a lot of them saw the sun as a chariot. We also have Amaterasu. Hopefully I said that. This is the Japanese sun goddess. She's the ruler of the heavens, kind of similar to Aditi in that sense. She was kind of a ruler of the heavens too, or sky goddess. So the sun goddess, ruler of the heavens, and revered in this Shinto religion. So this is a Shinto deity. This was used to give the imperial family power during that period where the Shinto religion was quite popular. And then we have here Shamash, who was a Mesopotamian, Babylonian, Akkadian sun god of justice, law, divine order, and the judge of the dead. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about Surya. I don't even know if I'm saying that right. I'm guessing. So Surya showed up around 3500 BCE. So I put the ones in order in this slideshow depending on the date they showed up. Looking at the images here, it was kind of hard to see all of what's in the images, and for some reason some of the websites didn't really describe it, but Surya was described as holding the lotus flower. So I feel like back then the sun god had more of a pleasant, maybe even a balanced expression. It wasn't this energy of dominance. So the lotus flower is supposed to be a representation of purification and purity. We get the white horses again. So sun really gets our day going. Sun moves us into action. Sun moves the plants into action because they have a process by which they follow the sun. Right? So sun gets us moving, gets us into action, as shown by the white horses again, the 7 drawn horses that represent the 7 colors of light. Roy G. Biv. Very cool. Yeah, so one of these sculptures was created around 1100 to 1150 CE. Okay. Yeah, so even though they were worshiping these gods, perhaps represented in texts, the art, that was created, most of it was created a little bit later on, or maybe a lot later on, 1,000 years later, before these sculptures were finally created. And hopefully I have the date right, because otherwise, if that's not 1100 CE, it's supposed to be BCE. But I'm not sure. Yeah, so the Surya sun god to me just gives me a very pleasant energy overall. I couldn't see all of what was in the images and the pictures, but it looks like he had children underneath him. So there, there's a representation or reference to being a father. Moving on here, we have Shamash, who's also referred to as Utu or Utu, maybe Utu, in the Mesopotamian or Babylonian culture. So Shamash was also a god who showed up around 3500 BCE. So Shamash was a very serious figure. So in this artwork, this steel, I don't know if it's a steel sculpture, it might be steel or stone here. But in the Babylonian culture here, Hammurabi, I remember learning about this in high school, here is standing depicted as receiving his royal insignia from Shamash. So basically they're saying that Hammurabi, who ruled from 1792 to 1750 BCE, who created the Hammurabi law, or code of law, he used this deity to have or hold power over others. And I heard that during this period, he created this like huge rule book or law book about what people could do or could not do, right? He was the beginning understanding of this idea of eye for an eye. So if you do this, we do that to you. Eye for an eye. Eye for an eye runs on a logical program and a fear-based program as well. And it was interesting because I was listening to Carolyn Meist. She just uploaded a video talking about the same thing. Very synchronistic. And she was saying like that was the mythology at the time. It was very much a aggressive, dark force, dark force energy coming towards someone if they didn't do what they were supposed to do. So people were very paranoid and superstitious during this time. They lived in fear. And this is something as humans we're always being challenged to understand and learn through divine how to get out of. Get out of those fear-based programs so that we can see the truth for what it is and not fear. The fear itself will control you. And during the period of his rule, there was hardly any upheavals or revolts because people were so terrified and afraid of doing the wrong thing because they didn't want to be punished, right? And this is what we hear parents say, sometimes grandparents perhaps. They'll say, oh, you need to put fear in him. If the kid's acting up, they tell the kids, hey, we got to put fear in you because you're not listening. You're not scared enough. You're not scared enough because that's what's used to control humans, fear. So we have a symbol here. It looks like a star with the rays coming out. Kind of looks like an eye, which is cool. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really have anything to say. Like the rays, it gives me this energy of like the rays emanating out. In the central sculpture here, we have a moon crescent of some sort and the two star rays on the side of it. So that's referencing the power of the sun and the moon. The power of the sun and the moon. So next here we have Ra, also referred to as Re, which showed up around 2950 or to 2750 BCE. It probably showed up around the same time, to be honest. Probably did, but there is no, recorded understanding of this. So Ra is often depicted with the falcon head and the solar disk, right? The solar disk connected to the sun. So he represents creation, kingship, and the daily rebirth of the sun. So Ra was found in the artwork of the tomb of Ramses I. So supposedly this artwork was created around 1290 BCE. So it says the Book of Gates in the tomb of Ramses I. So I guess it was part of a book, the Book of Gates. And you can see that Ra is in a boat of sort, and he's being like driven across the water. So that represents the sun rising and setting. So Ra is often connected to the eye. It looks like an eye, like disc. Symbology here is supposed to be a representation of Ra. It's like the third eye, or he sees the truth, or he brings the truth, or he reveals the truth. Those are the connections that we're aligning with. Just going off of intuition, I should have did more research, but the falcon to me is supposed to be a representation of, well, birds are usually a representation of seeing things from a higher perspective. So birds can often see everything that's going on underneath. It's basically saying, I see everything, therefore I will be wise in making my choices and decisions in life. So the Egyptians were very much connected to that eye symbology because they believed they felt like they were being watched, and so they needed to behave or act a certain way. Otherwise, things would not go well here. We have here Sol or Sunna. So this showed up around 1750 to 500 BCE. So Sol or Sunna was a Norse sun goddess, and I thought this was interesting because they had a feminine sun goddess. And I'm like, oh, there's not too much of that in the culture, the sun goddess. But yeah, according to their culture, they had that sort of reverence for women and seeing them as fierce. So I thought that was kind of cool. So she was also, as you can see in these images, there's no art created during that time to represent that I think she was probably found in texts. That's how they discovered of her existence. But this art was created much later on here, of her riding, on the horse. And then, they got sunflowers too. That's great because sunflowers are directly connected to that sun energy as well. Just realized I put the tarot card last. I was supposed to put that a little bit sooner. Kind of moved it. It's fine. Yeah, so it says here, the wolves pursuing Sol and Mani. Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, the wolves look pretty fearsome here, so I think in that culture or during that time people were probably afraid of wolves, or probably afraid of wolves catching them or biting them or chasing after them. So it shows she's getting away from those wolves. So maybe the wolf is supposed to be symbolic of, the shadow or the fear coming after you or chasing you, and you just don't want to deal with that. So Sol is also connected to being a healer. She provides for the people, and she's also connected to cycles. And I think that's I like that reference to femininity and cycles, since, women go through cycles with their period and their hormones. Like women have a 28-day cycle, whereas men have one. One. It's like, gee, I wonder why we're so different, huh? Okay, so the next, which one are we on? The next one I have here is Amaterasu. So this showed up around 712 CE, or the 8th century. Oh, was that CE? I guess so. So we got Amaterasu from the Japanese culture. So Amaterasu translates as shines from heavens. The sun goddess, ruler of the heavens, revered Shinto deity, a ruler of the heavens. She nourishes her people and grants the imperial family rule through relation. And she was her father's favorite. I thought that was really interesting. I'm like, oh, they chose a female deity. Perhaps that plays into their respect for women at the time. I think because of all of the mythologies, obviously there was some sort of respect for women. But when I was reading into all of the different gods and goddesses they had in this culture, there was one point where they said that when a woman, something about the wife, yes, her mom, or it wasn't her mom, it was her dad's wife, first wife. I forgot what her dad's name was in the mythology, but Amaterasu's father was with a woman, and when she had spoke first before her husband, their children turned out bad, according to the mythology. So I felt like they were using that to essentially control women, to let men, so that they didn't speak or have a voice, or as much of a voice, which was really sad. But I thought it was interesting how his wife was in danger. She was dying. She was attacked, and he couldn't save her. He ran away from her, and he was trying to wash the filth, according to the mythology, off of him. And when he washed the filth off of, he created 3 children. Amaterasu was one of them, and he created 2 boys. She was his favorite, maybe because she was obedient. The brothers were described as being problematic, and she married one of the brothers, and he was problematic. But I don't know, she had problems with both of her brothers. But one of them she had issues with, and then they forgave each other and moved on and moved forward in life. And at one point she's depicted as coming out of a cave of some sort, because she hid away, and then she comes out of the cave because she had gotten into a fight with a brother, and then they had forgiven each other. So I thought that was interesting, just the reference to the cave, because the cave is where we go to find our true light, because that's where we can remove ourselves of the distraction of this world and just kind of focus on ourselves and focus on that deeper inner journey within us. So I thought that was really cool, and that was a really good reference to the soul. The true journey of the soul is inward. So what I have here on the left is the 3 objects that was handed down supposedly to the imperial family that claimed to be related to Amaterasu. They said that the person who was ruling during that Shinto time was like a great-grandson of Amaterasu, and the people believed it, and people were like, oh my gosh, you're royalty, this is why we should let you rule. And people let them, and they got away with it. Absolutely insane stuff, guys. And you can't get away with that stuff today. I mean, you got to be a lot more of a trickster. And believe me, the simulation is upgrading for people to be a trickster in it. So the 3 objects she gave them was, one was like looks like a jade jewel of some sort. The other one was a sword. And the other one was a mirror. So that's supposed to be a mirror. I guess during that time it looked more like a mirror. And that was supposedly granted down to the imperial family so that they could protect themselves, reflect on themselves, and, I don't know, be jeweled. But these are objects of protection and magic. Yeah. It's just crazy. It's like, how do you convince yourself I am a descendant of a god and therefore I must rule over you? I mean, maybe some of them were fed that from their family, but I think definitely a lot of them started to notice something was up. They're like, oh, so we're using this to manipulate people and dominate them. Okay. So we got Helios here. So Helios is from the Greek and Roman culture. So the charioteer who drives the sun across the sky. And here we have some arts here designed beautifully to represent Helios and the sun. So this art looks to be like it was created in 430 BCE. Yeah. And supposedly at the bottom of the artwork on the very right side is supposed to be like male children falling down from the sky. Maybe because, I don't know, Helios was helping to give birth to them? I'm not entirely sure. If you read all of their mythologies, they all gave birth to girls and boys. It was all over the place. They all had boys and girls, so there was no bias there. But again, here's the sun god or sun solar energy being represented as male, masculine, intense, fierce, and with a horse. So the horse actually has a connection to Aries, which is, yeah, the horse has a connection to Aries. So it's interesting because sun is exalted in Aries. It's exalted in Aries, even though it rules Leo. The next one we have here is Apollo. So this Apollo had a more softer influence. So we have 3 symbols at the top. We have a like harp-like instrument. We have the, it's a lyre branch. So it's like the Greek branches. And then we have the bow and arrow. This is all associated with Apollo, who's connected to light, prophecy, music, poetry, and then I added divination and youth. So he was depicted as being more youthful, very Leo energy, and very sun card, I think. So here at the center of the image, we have something called an omphalos. So the omphalos was claimed to be the center of the universe when they had designed it and created this in the Greek culture, somewhere in Greece. In Delphi, in a place called Delphi, they said that this is supposed to be a representation of the center of the universe, and he's also connected to that. So that brings us to the sun being the center. So here's a marble statue. This is supposed to be the one that's kind of cut out right in the center at the bottom here. This is the marble statue of Apollo, created in 460 BCE. Yeah, look at that haircut. But I like that connection to poetry and music. It gave Sun, or a solar deity, a very softer perspective. And that definitely connects me to that Leo energy and that self-expression. You know, if there's anything our soul wants to express, it's often some sort of poetry, communication, or something creative. We want to express ourselves, usually vocally, verbally. We want to talk or say something. So we all have that inner poet in us. So next we have here the soul Invictus. So this showed up around 274 BCE, a little bit later. This helped with the later Roman Empire to uphold power because people believed in that soul Invictus intensity. They believe that, oh my gosh, yes, we are the best, we are the greatest, we're going to win. And it helped them to maintain their imperial power for a period of time. Some of this artwork here was created in, I don't know the one on the left side when that one was created, but the one in the middle was created around the 3rd century CE, and the one CE or BCE, and the one on the right side as well. So this looks really beautiful. You can obviously tell it was much later on because the artwork is a lot more refined and the metals that they use. So this is called Greek silver clicks, depicting Helios and a chariot. So there we go, another reference to the chariot, found in the Pantasampium. I hope I said that right. First half of the 3rd century. Yeah, there he is on his horse and radiating bright. All right, the last thing, I have a couple more things here. So the next we're going to be talking about Sun as the tarot card. So obviously the tarot card was created much later than the sun god showed up. So I imagine that this is where a lot of the inspiration came. But the author of the tarot card, I forgot what their name it was. I think it was a woman. This tarot deck, the Rider-Waite tarot deck here, I'm sure intuitively was connected to the energy of sun. So in the background, you see the sun, you have the waves. So that gives us the wavelength or the waves of light coming at us. You know, light doesn't just come at us in a beam, straight. It has waves, it has fluctuation. So that connects us to movement in atoms. All energy is always flowing and moving. It's not static or still. But the sun here has sort of a fierce image, and it also looks quite protective as it's looking over this child here who looks to be wearing a crown with a feather on top of it. And I feel like that's quite playful, maybe also a reference to the peacock or being seen. I imagine when you're wearing some sort of decorative crown on you, that's supposed to be a representation of attention coming to you, or you are royalty. So this baby's royalty, but this baby's also nude. So the child is that representation of youth, vitality, joy, innocence, and purity. That's all of us. That's all of our soul. And the jewel is supposed to be a representation of royalty. So that also connects me to higher states of consciousness. That's the true royalty. The divine royalty is when we're able to rise into those higher states of consciousness and connect to our soul and who we truly are. Then we are returned back to our divine royal essence. The red flag is supposed to be a representation of victory or overcoming obstacles. The brick wall behind the baby is supposed to be a representation of the obstacles. So that means that we're all going to have to go through things in life, but we all have the ability to overcome those obstacles. And here he's riding on the horse. To me, that's representation of forward movement. It's a white horse, so maybe that's a reference to purification. We also have the sunflowers behind him, which is a reference to that beautiful childlike wonder and joy that's always in us no matter what and cannot be taken away, not by any means or any circumstance. Our joy cannot be taken away. That is the eternal soul being that lives within us. It is joyous. Yeah, so the sun here is also shining down on the sunflowers, and the sunflowers are receiving the warmth and care of the sun, and it's growing tall and bright because of that process of photosynthesis where it's receiving the energy of the sun. Isn't that beautiful? Yeah, that's what I see in the symbology there. So here are the sun signs, sun's own sign, exaltation sign, and its debilitation sign. So in Leo, sun is in its own sign. Here the sun gives someone the courage to step into leadership. One may have a very bright and optimistic personality, a playful self-expression, or charisma. One can become self-centered or a light that activates others. One can also get caught up in the social politics or the glamour. But one ultimately thrives when they follow their joy. So these sun in its own sign, exaltation and debilitation is a representation of the spectrum that many of us experience sun on. Even though, sun is supposedly really emanating this certain energy strong when it's in certain signs, it ultimately has an spectrum of expression in you. So this is all of our spectrum of expression. It's going to be very obvious and potent when it's in these signs, but we all have this spectrum inside of us. So in Aries, the sun has a strong ability to maintain single focus in pursuits. One may be seen as a pioneer in their field, amongst their peers or family members. This is strongest when one redirects competition inward to overcome limiting beliefs. So Aries gives that really competitive edge. Sun is always going to give us a bit of a competitive edge wherever it's sitting, but that competition is ultimately to take down our own inner fears and insecurities inside of us and to build up our own confidence. Not to dominate others, but to lead by example. When it's debilitated and sun is in Libra, here one is a diplomatic role model who can lead in consciousness. One may often struggle with self-confidence and try to overcompensate to prove their worth. This energy works best when one sets their ego aside for the greater good. So though sun is considered debilitated in Libra because it's supposed to be, that energy is meant for self-expression, and it's in a sign of partnership where it's probably giving its life force energy away, there's still benefits to this placement. This is where sun learns how to set aside its ego, and ultimately, sun in those fire signs has a really hard time setting its ego aside. It's more focused on what it wants and what it's comfortable with, forgetting how people respond to it at times, forgetting how it impacts people at times. It forgets that. But when you're taking care of yourself, your vitality is great no matter what sign it's in. When you're making sure to just give yourself what you need and the rest that you need, you have the energy to give back to people because it feels really good. It feels great. But often sun, when it's any kind of detriment or debilitated experience, it's lacking in its own self-confidence. So this can happen, especially when it's in those watery houses, 4th, 8th, or 12th. It can feel like it doesn't have a way to directly express itself, but that comes with balance and intention. So sun in Libra is asking for one to balance, but really the balance is to set aside the ego for the greater good. So if you have a sun in Libra placement, you are going to be called into harmonious connections, contracts, partnership, where you have to work with people, set aside the ego, and it's going to be great for the soul. It's going to be great for soul growth. For status and success, it might frustrate one, but the status and success feeds into ego. So this placement it can go either way, because you'll see that people try to overcompensate when they have this placement. I don't know if Leonardo DiCaprio is one of them, but sometimes people will try to overcompensate. I know Gary Zukov has a 0 degrees Libra in his sun here. And, he had all kind of issues, sex addiction, and he had issues in relationships and partnerships. He was codependent on his worth, and he was seeking validation. And, he tried to become macho to overcompensate. But ultimately what he did is he surrendered, he went inward, and he found peace with himself, and he found harmony in relationships too. So I'm just like, it's all about how you see it, how you use it, and what you choose to do with it. That is going to be the end of part 1, sun. Graha series here. I will see you guys again for part 2, where we're going to be talking about sun in the signs. And I know you guys are really going to be interested in that. And I will be coming with examples as to how that energy is expressed. For the houses, because it's a lot more challenging to get exact birth times, what I'm going to do is I'm going to interchange. So when I read energies in tarot and whatnot, I find that they're somewhat interchangeable. So someone who has a sun in Libra and someone who has a sun in the 7th house, it's very similar. They have very similar stories. I've noticed the patterns, I've seen it. So I will just interchange if I can't find people with those sun in a specific house, because the birth times are up and down and some people are just in disagreement. So I'm just going to have to sort of guesstimate where it is, but I will try to interchange, and I will try to come up with multiple examples for each sign, which is why the videos are going to be long, so that you can really see how it unfolds in the journey. All right, I hope you guys have a beautiful day or evening, whatever you're watching this. I will see you next time. Bye.